Hi, Dr. Lee. Welcome you to the 2014 International Collaborative Piano Symposium at Tainan National University of the Art. And
thank you.
In your lecture yesterday, you mentioned lots of different systems about school accompanying, like the degree and the staff accompanist. And I noticed that there are now many university and college which has accompany program, and some of them have separate vocal and instrumental accompanist to independent departments, while some combine them both. Can you tell us the reason, like why different schools have different systems and how they work?
Okay. At our school, we do separate the master degree program into vocal emphasis and instrumental emphasis. But for all accompanying master students, for them to be able to graduate, they should do 3 recitals. And if it is instrumental accompanying, they should do 1 vocal recital and 2 instrumental. And for the vocal accompanying student, they still have to do 1 instrumental recital as well. So we try to educate all of them in a kind of well-rounded way so that they will know the basics for both vocal and instrumental. And the reason why we decided to separate is when you want to work at the opera house, you have to know French, Italian, and German quite fluently. So for them to be able to do all the diction classes and also to learn how to coach singers, this is almost like a totally separate field. So we had to create many different classes for training these abilities. So that's why we had to separate it. But it doesn't mean that instrumental students do not learn any vocal accompaniment. It is not that way. And also when I studied at the University of Michigan, I studied both instrumental and vocal. And I think it is necessary for any young accompanist, when they are studying, they should study both. Because often after several years you will teach somewhere, and many universities expect a teacher to know both instrumental and vocal. And also artistically, it is important for everyone to be able to work with singers as well, even if you are instrumental accompanist. And certain schools, they emphasize on professional training to go out to the real world and find a job as a orchestra, the opera orchestra, opera accompanist. So that's why we started. And in New York, it's a more big city and it's more geared toward professional training.
Are there differences between the 2 departments as the curriculum and class design?
Yeah, more.
What
yes.
class they take?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Can you give some examples, like which class vocal accompanists take and which class?
We have German art song class, French art song class, and opera production, which they go into, every rehearsal, and they play different opera, orchestra parts.
Yes.
Every class, and they do the production at the end of the semester. Yeah, so it's a very demanding work. Yeah.
And in a symposium lecture, you also mentioned that you strongly agree that every school should teach piano solo students accompany class in a class format or a private lesson. Can you talk about more like what you teach them in the class and what you expect them to learn?
The reason why teaching accompanying in a class format is important is you can utilize the same amount of time and in a much more effective way. So if you have 20 students in the class, they will hear the same thing, everyone will hear the comment, and you don't have to repeat 20 times. And also when, let's say I'm a student and I go into the class and then I see another student struggling with the same problem exactly, and then the teacher tells what to do, and then you see and hear right there how it changes. So sometimes when you are busy in the lesson playing, teacher tells you what to think about, but you cannot react to it quickly because you are so preoccupied. But when somebody else is doing it, suddenly when the legato is beautifully coming out, when the two instrument sounds is held together so beautifully, they learn quite a lot and different things from the individual lessons. So for the efficiency and also sharing the same issues and discussing.
And from that question, can you tell us what's the basic and more advanced skills and techniques that one accompanist should have?
Yeah.
And how did you tell its
starting together, for instance. Sometimes pianists and the soloists, they don't start together, and pianist gets very embarrassed because she missed the soloist. But then sometimes it's not the pianist's fault. It's the soloist who did not give the cue well. So I tell my student, when you don't know when to come in with your partner, perhaps it's not entirely your fault. You should ask your partner, give a cue in a different way. So it's such a basic thing, but it can be a problem. So, for instance, cue should tell the tempo, of course, when to come in, but also the character. When you go like this, it is a slow, very emotional, and then, then it's a different character. So, such a thing can be a problem. And how to communicate, whether you should do visual content or whether you listen and orally make a communication. Sometimes string quartets are taught to sit back to back so that they cannot see each other and still be able to communicate, So these are very basic things, but it can be a problem. So you have to start there. And then another basic problem is many, for instance, soloists, violinists, when, for example, in the spring sonata, after their solo phrase, 8 bars, then they start accompanying the pianist, but they still play loud, and they think they are the solist. So teaching them, here you are the solist, but there you are the accompanist. We are changing heads, solist, going back and forth. So when I joked once, when two people try to follow each other, because they are told you have to listen to each other, so they listen and follow each other. When one person has to lead and one person has to follow, if two people are following, music immediately goes out the window.
And there's no down to that.
Yes, and it just somehow it sags and sags. And then the funniest part is when two people are trying to lead. When one person has to. So these are such basic things, but when I point out in the class, the students sitting and listening, they say, wow, that's interesting, how immediately music suddenly becomes alive and takes off, So I would say these are basics, but very important.
Sure.
You know. And then the advanced issues, of course, when pianists go into string teachers' studio, many string teachers say, softer, you are too loud, you are too loud. And then they immediately put left pedal and just play everything soft. And then it sounds like really like an accompanist when it is actually a duo chamber music partner. So the main thing that I really try to train is we pianists should be able to think like a conductor. Here, my right hand top line is important, the rest softer. Sometimes the tenor voice is important, so bring out the left hand sound, and the rest much softer. So there are many different, possibilities and different musical settings. So you have to learn what to do in different situations. Sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it is not obvious at all, and sometimes simply students should know they should just try different ways. Let me try bringing out this one or the soprano, let's see which one we like better. So this probably is one of the advanced issues. And then, imagine when two people are creating a drama, if one person always follows whatever the person is doing, it's not 1 plus 1, or we could say 1 plus 1 just 2. But when two people have strong musical ideas, and sometimes music is requiring you insist your way and the other person insists their way, and the beautiful tension between the two parts. This is an essential part of the drama. And of course, when you are starting, you don't know, you think you should follow your partner and not too loud, and so they become too submissive. And then the drama cannot become really, full. So I tell them, here you can really pull, and you pull, and we want to see wrestling together, And that's kind of a necessary process, but often one forgets. And then another advanced issue is many people think that when you are accompanying, you should use less pedal because it can create a lot of sound and piano sound sustaining too long and too much. But one of the magical thing the pedal does is it softens the initial attack of the sound, So it makes the piano sound a little bit gentle and lifting, and you cannot tell where is the direct, attacking point. So this way you can create the sound that blends better with your partner. So in a soft section, one has to be careful, of course, not to press the pedal too deep, but with a very shallow pedal, creating this very blending sonority. This is an ongoing issue because you play in this room where it is dead, then you can use more pedal, and in a live hall you have to use less. But this, once they understand the basic concept, then they can improve.
You need to adjust all the time.
Yeah, of course. Like yesterday, I felt very sorry for few pianists because they were very fine pianists and they were well prepared, but the piano, this Fazioli, which is such a
And there's a lot of
powerful piano, and poor violinist has only 4 strings, so the balance was a problem. Of course, they will improve, but as a competition, we could not give a prize, because of that balance problem. So this is always a ongoing issue for every pianist, whether you are student or professional.
And since you have spent quite a span of time in both United States and Germany and also Korea, can you tell what do you observe from the students in terms of their musicianship and scholarship, like in each different country, and some of the strengths or the weakness?
I studied in the U.S., but I've performed much more in Europe. So I was able to experience two different sort of situations. One of the things I noticed was, which is an important difference, is in the US, if you are known as an excellent accompanist, everyone comes to you to work or to play for their recitals. Whereas in Germany, it's more like if we are playing a recital, this is an equal partnership. So when we play together, if you go to another soloist and play together, it's almost like a polygamy. You know?
Betray?
Yeah, well, not betray, but it's like sharing, two men sharing one woman, you know? So they are very reluctant. Yeah. So that mentality reflects, they regard their pianist not as an accompanist, but more as a dual partner. And also they spend much more time together. And they try to establish a long sustaining partnership often, because they want to share the interpretive ideas and who has the similar direction of imagination and so on. And this cannot be done in 3 rehearsals, you know, things like this. So that's I would say, main difference. And of course, there is from the musical point, I could say the classical style. For instance, Viennese, sometimes they say, unless you are Viennese, you cannot know the Schubert ones. Or they have their nationalistic pride. But because, you know, people still talk about, oh, Brahms said this, or Brahms said that at a dinner table in Vienna. I was really surprised. You know, we are having Christmas dinner together, and elderly couple was saying, you know, Brahms said this and that. So
they are musicians?
No. So they were parents of my musician friend, but they were still talking about it. So there is, of course, strong tradition. Yeah. So U.S. is a little bit far away from it, and also U.S. became could have a very high standard of classical music, because historically the influx of many good musicians who left Russian Revolution and also the Nazi. So many people came from, you know, Vienna and Berlin and Moscow, and they brought their tradition, their understanding of tradition. So now this generation passed away, and we are the next generation who learned from these great teachers. So some of the information survived, some of them did not survive. So one could say you find more often the lack of understanding of classical style in the US. But at the same time, you know, performing requires free spirit. So and imaginative, mindset. So in that sense, U.S. could be perhaps a little bit stronger too. And another thing that I found in Germany was I was so surprised. My partner said, I am going to register us as a duo for tax because they charge less tax. If you register as a soloist, you pay higher tax. But in Germany, to promote chamber music, they have a lower tax rate for chamber groups. Isn't it incredible?
Yeah.
Yeah.